History Inside a Nutshell, the show where we sail into our port of call discussing maritime history. In the second video of Lusitania month, I thought about doing a video on the launch and construction of the ship. This video has been narrated once again by my friend Hanna, who has done a marvellous job with the narration. Hanna, thank you so much for all of your support and help as well. And you can catch Hanna on my Discord server and on my new blog. Yes, I now have a blog. Even though I've never announced it in previous videos, I run a blog where I try to upload posts every single day. So if you want to check out both of them, I will leave links in the description box down below. Now I will leave you in good hands with Hanna as we talk about the construction and launch of the Lusitania.
Greyhound of the Seas, the beginning of the Lusitania. When it comes to the Lusitania, we often overlook her story, concentrating on her ending instead. However, despite her revolutionary and luxurious beauty that won her admirers, her early life was more dramatic than a British soap opera. Thankfully, she would have a smooth maiden voyage to New York City. But what is the story of her construction, launch, and life before the voyage between Liverpool and New York? The story of the Lusitania began in 1894, when the Cunard Line, one of the many dominant British shipping companies, faced increasing competition from German shipping companies. In particular, two of them were the Norddeutscher Lloyd and the Hamburg America lines. These rivals have presented new, larger, faster, and more luxurious ships, and one of them, the Kaiser Wilhelm der Grosse, won the Blue Riband, which was a title for the fastest ship to cross the transatlantic shipping lane. With the Germans championing the transatlantic lane, the British shipping companies were in danger of liquidation and being purchased by businessmen who worked outside the shipping industry. This included J.P. Morgan, an American millionaire who bought the White Star Line in 1902. Morgan was interested in buying the Cunard Line too, but this never came to be. In response to the crisis, the chairman of Cunard, George Burns, Lord Inverclyde, decided to approach the British government for financial assistance. The government agreed to help and offered Cunard a loan of £2.6 million to finance two ships. These ships would later become the RMS Mauretania and Lusitania. Although their purpose was to carry mail and serve passengers on the transatlantic route, but also to serve as auxiliary cruisers in the event of a war. The British government and Cunard agreed that the Lusitania and Mauretania would be designed with high tensile steel. The Lusitania and Mauretania were designed by Cunard's naval architect Leonard Pescott. By 1903, Pescott had been with the Cunard Line for 20 years, coming from the Royal Navy dockyard in Portsmouth, where he had been an apprentice shipwright. There's been a video of Pescott when he went on board the RMS Olympic in 1911. A link to the video will be featured on the card above and in the description. In addition to Pescott, Cunard established a committee who were involved in designing turbine-powered ships for the British Navy and produced the technology of turbine engines. It was purposed that the engines, which were to be designed from scratch, could be designed with a speed of 25 knots and would require 68,000 brake horsepower. This resulted in the ships having 4 Parsons steam turbine engines, which would have been driven by their propellers. Interestingly, Pescott wanted the ship to be designed to have 3 funnels. This was later changed to 4 because the company wanted them to be built for speed. Pescott also designed the Lusitania's 9 watertight compartments, which housed the auxiliary machinery and main propulsion. Overall, the Lusitania took £1,651,870 and 16 shillings to be built. The process began on the 17th of August 1904, when the Lusitania's keel was laid down at the John Brown and Company Clydebank in Glasgow. Later on in the construction, Lord Inverclyde hammered in the first rivet. During her construction, the liner was built by 1,000 workers. However, due to her mammoth size at 787 feet long, the channel of the River Clyde had to be deepened and widened. This was to enable the Lusitania to have a safe passage down the river to the open sea. In 1906, after being unnamed for 2 years, Cunard gave the ship her final name in February 1906. Months later, on the 7th of June at 12:30 p.m, 600 guests and thousands of spectators witnessed the christening and launch of the Lusitania. According to the website, the Lusitania resource, the site explains what happened when the ship was launched. Quote, "As the ship slid down the slipway, cables held back the wooden support structure upon which the ship rested. 1,000 tons of drag chains attached to the hull would slow Lusitania down once she was in the water. 6 tugs moved to capture Lusitania and moved the ship to her filling out berth." Unquote. But things didn't go smoothly for the Lusitania following her launch. She had trouble when, in June 1907, her engines were tested, but while sailing down the Clyde, she jaunted. She had her sea trials on the 27th of July in secret, and while being tested, she was watched and inspected by representatives from Cunard, John Brown, and the Board of Trade, and the Admiralty. This was a gamble, as if the Lusitania didn't reach her contract speed, John Brown would receive a £10,000 fine for every 1/10 of a knot. Luckily, the Lusitania managed to travel over 26 knots. However, because she was travelling too fast, the stern violently vibrated. Because of the vibration, the second-class accommodations were unlivable. The inner and outer propellers were the corrupt for the shaking, and as a result of this, the accommodations had to be gutted and stiffened with additional supports, disguised as pillars and arches in the decor. Unfortunately, the vibration problem was never solved, and this will remain throughout her career. After she was remodeled in August, the Lusitania was open to the public. 10,000 people paid to have a guided tour of the ship, and the money from the tour was given to charity. One visitor remarked, quote, "If ever a ship deserves to be called a floating palace, the Lusitania does." Unquote. The Lusitania began her maiden voyage in Liverpool on the 7th of September 1907, sailing towards New York City, where she would arrive safely on the 13th. 1 month later, the Lusitania won the Blue Ribbon, taking the title from the Hamburg America Line's ship, the SS Deutschland, at a speed of 24 knots on her journey between Queenstown, Ireland and Sandy Hook, New Jersey. Tragically, the Lusitania would sink after being struck by a torpedo on the 7th of May 1915. Like the construction and the launches of the ship, the Lusitania had a rough wave of events, even before her keel had been laid. She was built for the Navy in times of war, but because of the vibration problem that was never solved, this may have played a part in the sinking. However, we might never know if it's the case.
If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe for future videos. Until next time, this has been History Inside a Nutshell, departing from the dogs. Thank you so much for all of your support and enjoy the rest of your voyage.